Hello to everyone joining.
Exciting. Just seeing some people trickle in. We'll just wait a few minutes for everyone to get here before we get started. So we're just waiting for a few folks still. Probably start right at 3:35. Sorry for the awkward silence, everyone. We're just gonna wait a few more moments.
You guys could just share what time is it where you are right now. For me, it's 9:30 p.m.
Oh my goodness.
For me, it's 8:30, so I'm an hour behind or ahead. I can't English. Can someone enlighten me?
8:30. Which 8:30 in the morning?
8:30 or 8:30 p.m.
Okay.
And mine is 5:30 p.m. as
Oh
well.
my goodness. I'm in Eastern, so 3:30.
Oh, yeah. All right.
Okay, so we'll get started now. So hello, everyone. My name is Jamie. I'm the People Operations Director for MLQ. I'm from Canada, for those of you who don't know me. Hello to the chat who said hello to me. So a little bit about me. I played for Team Canada the very first Global Games in Oxford. I was lucky enough to go and meet a bunch of folks from all over, like Canada, the US, Australia, France, and England, of course, at that game. I'm old, yes. And I've met a lot of folks all over the US as well. So that's my experience internationally. We also have Emma. Emma, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure, yeah. So my name is Emma Shiromachow. I'm also based in Canada. I've been involved in the sport since 2009, so also have been around for a while. I've played for 2 Canadian national teams and also most recently with Hong Kong in 2018. But off the pitch, I've also been a volunteer with Quidditch Canada, the IQA, and I'm also volunteering with MLQ. So that's kind of the really short version. There's too much to say about my involvement in the sport.
Awesome. Kyle, would you like to go next?
Yeah, sure. Hey, everyone. Hey, chat. I'm Caio Santos. I'm from Brazil, as you can see by my flag. I've been involved in Quidditch since 2017. Since then, I've played for 2 teams here in Rio de Janeiro. Rio Ravens, that's my shirt. That's my jersey, and Rovers Quadribol. quadribol is how we call Quidditch in Brazil. Yeah. So since then, I've been director of tournament here in Brazil for the state championship. And I've also founded the Através dos Aros page in Instagram. In English, this will be something like Through the Hoops or something like that.
Awesome. Stefan, would you like to go next?
Yeah, sure. I'm Stefan. I'm from Germany, and I've been in Quidditch community since 2015. And in Germany, I have coached the national team, and I have played for the national team for 2 years. And I've also coached the team at my hometown in Darmstadt, and that's kind of my experience in the community. I have not been so active in international community yet, but I'm trying to change this. So this is a great opportunity for me, and I'm very happy to be here.
Awesome. And Jandals.
Hi everyone. Sorry, my real name is Emma, but everyone knows me as Jandals because I often find that there are lots of Emmas or M's or Emilys. So feel free to call me Jandals to avoid confusion. But yeah, I'm a bit of a complicated one. So born in the UK, raised in New Zealand and educated in Australia. And I'm very lucky to have played Quidditch in all 3 of the countries. But my Quidditch journey started in 2015 in Australia. And after about 4 years of playing there and going to a few World Cups representing New Zealand, which I started up and still run, and all the inner workings of that Ngbs. And then I actually moved over to the UK 2 years ago to see what Quidditch was like, a bit literally for Quidditch was my only reason, very hard to justify to my parents. But to learn a lot about, I was fascinated at last World Cup in 2018 of all the different cultures and different approaches to Quidditch. To me, it was just absolutely fascinating. So since then, I've been playing in the UK for the last 2 years and tried to visit as many countries in Europe as possible in that time. Unfortunately, COVID, but hopefully in the next 2 years.
Yeah. Some of the comments are saying that we love that you moved for Quidditch. That's quite iconic. So maybe I'll ask you this first question. So can you tell us a little bit about the structure that exists in the countries that you've played in?
Yeah, of course. I think I actually sent, for those who are, I guess, verbally challenged like myself, I put a wee diagram I sent through. I'm not sure if that can be put up on the screen, which kind of outlines, I guess, the different structures that I know between Australia, New Zealand, and the UK. But I'll start off with Australia. Basically, for anyone who has been to Australia knows that we pretty much run up a league structure. And this basically means that you're playing games usually locally with a couple of teams every month or every 2 weeks. In Australia and New Zealand in particular, it's very common, to join a local football team, soccer team, whatever, and you play every weekend. So Quidditch is very much trying to, I guess, replicate that structure, which I think is really great. You train once a week with your team and then you play against other teams in an official capacity, and lots of volunteering is very, very big over there. Everyone has to volunteer. So it's quite sort of self-run, and I really like that structure. And then all the usuals, national tournaments, international tournaments. In coming over to the UK, however, I found a very interesting and different structure. I noted that a lot of teams there's sort of about 4 big tournaments, and those are your opportunities to play in the UK. And the rest of the time you're attending fantasies, you're doing kind of probably training with your own team. The stakes I found are a lot higher over in the UK. You've got 4 opportunities to prove yourself, and that's it. Which I found very difficult personally as an Australian I thought I'd get about who played about 15 games in 6 months. I think I've played probably about 15 games in 2 years across my whole time in the UK. So I hope, but the structure is much, much more rigorous over in the UK, very, very well organized. Volunteers are very well funded over in the UK. I was really, I'm really pleased when I came over here to see how much they take care of their volunteers. Does that kind of give you a good sort of overview of the two contrasting styles?
Yeah. So how does it look then in Germany, Stefan?
Well, I think it actually is like maybe a mixture of New Zealand and UK, because we also have the 3 big tournaments like German Cup and EQC qualifier and some development cup for those teams that don't make EQC qualifier. But we also have a league going on, and the league is like all year round, and it's I would say maybe every 3rd week we play some other team, and that other team, like those games, they are not really that high stakes. Like it's okay if we lose them, it's okay if we win them. It's just for the fun of it, kind of. But after the league has finished, after one league season, the best teams in the league go to EQC qualifiers. So it does have some importance in the season, but it's not like only 3 big ones. It's 3 big ones and a few smaller games.
And ECQ is the European Quidditch Cup, correct?
Yeah, right. Yeah. EQC
Sure.
is actually, yeah, true. Sorry.
It's okay.
Yeah, one more thing that I would like to share about the structure in Germany is our national team, because since last year, or no, actually since 2 years ago, we also have a national development team. And in both teams, we actually have some really great thing, because we recruit players from all teams in Germany, and we have kind of managed to get really many teams into our national teams. So what you usually see in countries like Germany or UK or countries with big tournaments is that good teams become even better, and not so good teams don't really have the chance to develop. And we kind of have a system in place where the national team closes this performance gap. And yeah, I just wanted to share that because I really like it about it.
And what do things look like over in Brazil? How do you guys run your?
Oh, yeah. In Brazil, we've only have Quidditch tournaments, championships since 2018. So we are a little behind. But yeah, we have this 3 Brazilian championships. There are the 2 state championship in Rio de Janeiro and in São Paulo. And those are very local, but usually players from other states go to this place to this state's championship as a loan to play for other teams. And it's something that really brings the community together, I believe. And then we have the nationals. Here in Brazil, we have I believe it's close to 30 teams right now. So at least it was prior to the COVID. But we have like 30 teams, so we don't have enough to have regionals yet. So we kind of do this. Everyone can play in the nationals and do your best, you know. We have had 2 nationals so far, 2018 and 2019. 2020 didn't happen because of everyone knows. But both of them were won by the same team. This is the team that had Augustine Monroe in last year. Because in the end of the year, usually in December, we have this South America Cup that is called the Copa del Sur. So kind of Cup of South or something. And sometimes we have actually last year, 2019, was the first year that Brazilian teams came to the Copa del Sur. It was in Argentina, and we had a Brazilian champion. It was very big for us. We were hoping to guest to host the CES for this 2020 edition, but it didn't happen. So we kind of looking forward to it because it would really help us to make Quidditch in Brazil bigger and to attract more people. And so far we've played most in parks and something. So like we have this park in Rio called Quinta da Boa Vista, and this is kind of the home of Brazilian Quidditch because it's where the first team came up, where the first tournament came up. Oh, sorry.
Okay.
Huge thunder here. And then we kind of played this play so far, but we hope to go bigger in the following years, to go like play in stadiums and some things like that. Of course, it all depends on quarantine and stuff and all that. Brazil right now is very, very bad with it because it's actually worse than ever before with COVID. So we kind of hope that with the vaccination and all of that, we can go back on the field and we can go bigger. Yeah.
I think that's what everyone's hoping is a little bit of vaccination rollout. We can get back to playing.
Yes,
and
please.
Back to international competition. Emma, so like, do you want to quickly speak on maybe what it's like in Canada versus Hong Kong?
Sure, yeah. So I figured actually I've only really played in Canada and I guess by extension North America. So I'll probably just go over how the season works here. And then if anyone has any questions about Hong Kong, I can try to answer. But anyways, so basically the season is mostly aligned with the university schedule in Canada, which runs from September to April. Tryouts and recruitment usually run from late August to mid-September, and then tournaments occur throughout October to November, and then that fall season culminates in a regional championship for both the East and West regions, which occurs in mid-November before the weather essentially forces everyone indoors for practice. Although more community teams have sprung up in recent years, especially as the university teams, a lot of the players have graduated from those ones, accommodating the university schedule is still the most cost-effective way for Quidditch Canada to host its large-scale events. Unfortunately, the number of teams in Canada has kind of stagnated in the last few years. So in the first, I would say from 2009 to around 2013, the numbers were rapidly growing to the extent that, our population could support Quidditch, because we only have major cities, mostly they're Vancouver, Edmonton, Calgary in the West, and then out East it would be Ottawa, Toronto, Montreal. But I would say like in the last 6-7 years since then, the number of teams have kind of stagnated. So we've got at our most regional tournament in 2019, 12 teams attended the Eastern Regional Championship and 7 teams made an appearance at the Western Regional Championship. So we're at around 20 teams right now. And that means that basically any league level team can qualify to compete at the regional championship, given that they play a minimum number of games during the fall season. So there isn't really any divisional play, despite the fact that we do have community teams. It just wouldn't be sustainable to host these events by splitting those groups into divisions. Then after that, the school year concludes, there is some summer play that happens in the country. Canadian players out East can compete in Major League Quidditch, which currently has 2 Canadian-based teams. One is the Ottawa Black Bears, which was established in 2015, and then the Toronto Raiders were recently established, I think, for the 2019 season. You can correct me if I'm wrong, Jamie. And then there are also a number of teams or cities which organize fantasy tournaments in the summer. So Toronto, Ottawa, Vancouver, and Edmonton have been most consistent in hosting fantasy tournaments. There are also some players, especially those on the West Coast who are pretty close to the border. They are known to compete in fantasy tournaments in the States as well. And it's also worth noting that there is this league that popped up after MLQ left the West region a couple of years ago, and this league is called the Western Championship Quidditch. And there is one team that's based kind of in Washington State / Vancouver, and that includes some dedicated Western Canadian players. So I've always found it kind of interesting how Canada and the US interact in the sport.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So I guess for those of you who've played in a couple different countries, so notably Jandals and Emma, what would you say is like the major difference? Like, what's the one thing that you're like, oh my goodness, like it was a complete culture shock going from one country to another?
Oh, I definitely know. Like, I think one of the biggest differences I noticed between Australia and the UK was, funnily enough, tackling and general fitness. I've come from Australia and New Zealand are countries that play a lot of rugby. We play a lot of AFL, a lot of contact sports. And I remember pretty much every training session in Australia, just taking massive hits from huge people. Tackle training was the name of the game. We've even got a really great, I think, a specialized, we usually get, masseuses and things on our pitches, and there's like a heavy physio presence on our pitches, and, body care is really important, especially in a tackling environment. When I went to the UK, I was very surprised to have none of that. I think that what I found even more surprising is how people tend to tackle in the UK. I personally found some approaches to tackling not unsafe, but I felt that definitely kind of segregated, especially upon sex. I found that very surprising. But also the frequency, I think I probably had 2 or 3 tackle trainings in a year in the UK, which I found quite very, very different. But on the counter side to that, the UK are extremely fast. I have never met a faster group. So I think with the tackling, you're a lot heavier built. You're much more accustomed to slow balling and taking hard hits. Coming to the UK, because everyone was so quick on their feet, they'd run up and they could easily outlap me 3-1 on any training session. So I think that was probably the biggest culture shock for me, style-wise.
Yeah, I come from a rugby background too, and I remember my first Quidditch practice, everyone was running, and I was like, "Can we hit people?" Emma, what about you've played in? I know personally know you, and you've been to a lot of places all over the world to play or even watch or participate. So, what was like the biggest culture shock? Maybe playing for Team Canada, then playing for Team Hong Kong.
Yeah, I would just say that they're just at different stages of development. So, like, Team Hong Kong, or I guess I should say the Hong Kong Quidditch Association, they had their beginnings, I believe I read in a Facebook post like way back in 2015 when it was just kind of like this budding idea, but the association itself wasn't actually founded until I think 2017, maybe the end of 2017 going into 2018, which is then when they decided, oh, let's just try to go to World Cup. So there were a few players on that World Cup team that had never really played a real Quidditch match before. So just in my view, I thought the most important thing was to get them comfortable with just being out there and being aware that it is a physical sport and that at this level, like, you are probably going to get hit and you're going to have to, be ready for that. So I did help with some of the trainings and the coachings just leading up to the event when we were first practicing in Italy. And yeah, the emphasis there was really just like your basic skills, like pitch awareness, how to throw a ball, how to catch a ball, how to take a tackle, maybe try how to like the technique of trying to make a tackle. I'm not an expert at this. Fraser's on the call and maybe he can talk about this later. But yeah, it was it was really interesting. It was really fun though. I think they were all there just because they wanted to experience the sport at, you know, that level, and on the international stage, it was a really awesome experience for them. Whereas with Canada, obviously things have been established for a little while now. A lot of their trainings was more based on like a little bit more in-depth strategy and just like more fitness, the fitness aspect of it. So they're just like at different stages of development, and that's completely reasonable considering how much newer to the sport Hong Kong is.
You're giving me lots of flashbacks of my World Cup too for New Zealand in 2018. We were on a similar playing field. Yeah, I think the hardest thing for me was trying to explain betas, like beta rules, to people that haven't played very much at all. So how did you go around that? I'm really curious.
Well, actually, I think the team was pretty good when it came to rules. I think they studied the rule book quite well. Maybe they had time on their flight over. But yeah, no, I thought that they were really good listeners. Everyone collaborated really well. And I think like as a team, there was a lot of cohesion. Everyone just wanted to represent Hong Kong really well. So that was awesome. I do have my jersey on. It's kind of hard to see, but there's the jersey. It's a dragon. It's pretty awesome. Yeah.
So Stefan, I personally, so when I kind of stepped away from Quidditch and then came back in, I found there was like a huge explosion of Quidditch in Europe. You know, at first there was like 1 or 2 teams, and then all of a sudden there's an ECQ, and I'm just like, wow, like there's so many teams. So what ways like do you found, like how did you find that happen, and how did you find the standardization and the growth of Quidditch in Europe to happen so quickly and so successfully from my point of view?
Yeah, you mean the explosion, right?
Yeah, like how did that just happen?
Yeah, it was actually when I joined, because I joined in 2015 and we had like 4 teams in Germany, and then the first German Cup, like the national tournament, was like between those 4 teams, and it was just a really cool thing, but nobody really thought that it would be becoming bigger or anything. And like 3 years later, we now have 50 teams. 50, not 15, 50.
Okay.
It's
well,
like
wow.
10 times as many teams, and I don't actually know why, but it's just really, really, really great to see this development. And actually, I do think I have 2 explanations for it though. The one is our national team that's like giving the knowledge to other teams as well. And another one is we have a Quidditch convention just like this one, but in real life every year. And we teach our not so experienced teams what they can do to recruit people, to found new teams, to everything that you can imagine, like all the topics. And we have that every year as well. And I think those are maybe reasons why this has exploded so much.
And sorry, how many teams would you say participate at the European Quidditch Cup?
The European Quidditch Cup is limited to 32 teams. So there's always only 32 teams, except for 1 year, but that was just stupid. But those 32 teams are like the best teams from all the countries in Europe.
Okay. And
it is really hard to actually qualify for this cup. At least in Germany, it's really hard now. Like in my first year, it was really easy because we were like the only team that would go there. But now with 50 teams, we have 8 spots, I believe, for EQC. And so you have to be among the top 8 teams to actually be able to go there. Okay. And actually in the chat, someone said that's also EQC Division 1 and EQC Division 2 now. That's actually correct. So you have an additional 16 slots or 16 teams that can go to a Division 2 of EQC. But still you need to qualify for this. Like, yeah, that's what it is right now.
And Kyle, like you said, that you guys are starting sort of a South American, you had the tournament in Argentina Cup. how do you see that growing over the next few years? You said that, it's still a relatively new sport in South America. How do you see that growing? Is there anything that you're hearing from other countries that you're like, wow, like these are things we could take back?
Yeah, I think that especially with the Cup of South coming, we can grow the sport a little bit because we're taking it to another countries. So far, until last year, it was very centered in some countries, some teams from some countries, and then with Brazil coming to play with them, we kind of just open up a little bit the possibilities. So yeah, we also had teams from Mexico, and all these teams from different countries coming together to play Quidditch is something that really helped the sport to grow, because when we're talking about Quidditch, we have this thing that we can go and say, see, we have this tournament that happens every year, and this is something that happens, because people will look at it and see differently, because it's not just some playful thing that we do on weekends. Yeah, it involves traveling. It involves making changes in your life so you can keep up with your team, both financial and physical changes too. So yeah, I believe with the growth of Copa del Sur, we're going to get in this place where we can have multiple teams from multiple countries joining this. South America is not a very large continent, so not even in soccer we have this many countries coming to play. So in Copa de America, for example. But yeah, I think we're growing. If we have this all these countries joining to go there to make this tournament even bigger, I believe we can really grow from where we are right now.
So
Yeah.
Oh yeah, sorry.
Can I add to this actually?
Yeah.
Yeah, because I just remembered that in 2016 we actually had the IQA World Cup in Germany as well, and this was also a big boost. So I just hope for you that the Copa del Sur is going to be a big boost for your community as well.
I definitely think hosting an international event and bringing such attention to the sport, attention to your country in the context of that sport will bring such good growth for a country. Like I know that as soon as Quidditch sort of picked up in North America, and US and Canada share a lot of cultural similarities at some point. So when it started picking up here, teams started popping up left, right, and center, and it was a quick boom when it got popular. Emma, you had your hand raised there.
Yeah, I just wanted to add too. I know that in Asia there have been tournaments hosted in Korea, Japan, and Vietnam, and I know that serves as a huge motivation for players to stay in the sport. And I think also when they travel abroad and they see how dedicated other players are in these other countries, that only makes them more motivated. And I think if we go back to the roots like that, those grassroots efforts are, I think, what will keep this sport alive, and what I hope the countries in Asia can get back to doing, because with COVID, I think Hong Kong has really been struggling to get anything going. I feel like they're losing steam because they haven't been able to practice in so long. So that's definitely a big concern. But international play for sure really helps sustain some inspiration for players.
Yeah, Jan, does you also have your hand up?
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to add to that point. I cannot stress enough how important international competition is, especially for Australia, New Zealand, and many of the Asian regions. And I think one of the things that ties people into this is international events help you solidify connections with people overseas. And that's incredibly valuable to a lot of people who are going into the sport. You know, you get to basically expose yourself to completely new ideas, new cultures. And for a lot of people in New Zealand, Australia who love to go traveling, it's always great to have people to go and see or to go and meet. And so these international events are almost like an anchor for people to go and socialize and meet their old friends and make a whole bunch of new friends. But in addition to that, I think kind of this is what is going to be, I think, a major struggle for the IQA and many other countries in the coming years is it's going to be a resources issue. But then it's also going to be, I guess, whether it's going to be an inclusion issue or a competitive issue. And I think this is going to become more and more prevalent as World Cups go on. Because you have countries like Hong Kong and New Zealand who are probably not as experienced, as you said, but they're going to get, and so you're going to get teams like the UK or teams like USA who are completely just miles ahead. They're not going to want to play in those international tournaments with teams that are sort of quote unquote less experienced. So I think that's something that at least needs to kind of be at the forefront of maybe, especially for developed nations, especially nations like Germany and the UK, is do you want the sport to be very diverse and have lots of different countries, or would you prefer to have it highly competitive? I don't have the answer to that question. I think there's lots of different benefits to that, but that is something that is going to become much, much more important internationally as the years go on.
I agree. I think that's a really good point where in some of the past World Cups, we've started seeing the difference between some of the countries that have been around for 10 plus years or 8 plus years and some of the newer countries. And as we, get back to international play, hopefully soon, I'd love to see how the IQA addresses that. Kyle?
We were talking about international competition, and we got to talk about IQA's World Cup because Brazil it was on the 2016 World Cup, but we had a team formed by players that weren't playing in Brazil. They were playing in USA and Europe.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them have never even played Quidditch when they were in the World Cup. But then in 2018, we had a more local team with players that actually played here. And when they came back from Italy, they added so much experience from this international competition. Because they have seen the players from another countries such as USA, as UK, and they were able to go back to their teams here in Brazil and spread this and teach everyone how to play quote unquote better. Because more experienced players were there and we learned from them, even though like only, I don't know, 18, 15 maybe players were on the World Cup. Everyone from Brazil, every player from Brazil, they were benefited from this experience.
So my first real tournament, I'd say, was Global Games in 2012 in the UK. And while I come from a pretty competitive background of sports outside of it, going into that, I was like, it's Quidditch, it can't be that hard. And then I promptly got a lot of things handed to me, especially my own ego by Team USA. And I'd say the moment I went from watching them play, my growth even in that tournament was huge. Coming back to Canada, instantly felt like I was much stronger of a player. And I feel like everyone who was on Team Canada with me at that tournament came back, and at regionals, not only were we all so close, but like we noticeably were some of the better players on the field at that point because of the growth we had over the summer. We are almost running out of time, so I do want to ask the audience I wrote in chat if you wanted to share, but maybe people don't see the chat. Do you have any questions that you guys would like me to ask the panelists here? And if not, I have a few more. I love to talk, but
there seems to be a question in the Q&A.
am I missing that?
There's like a dedicated Q&A button at the bottom of Zoom.
Oh, I missed it. Okay, so from the Big Apple Quidditch Conference, it says, from an outsider's perspective, it appears German Quidditch has seen an explosive growth, not just in numbers, but in talent in the last few years. What are some of your Ngbs recruitment and retention techniques?
Yeah, so I guess that's a question for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we have the two national teams. I think I stressed this before. It's really actually a big part of our retention strategies, actually, because national team is not only about competition, but it's more about family, and you actually learn from each other. Like, you go to practice there, and except for maybe the tournament, but everything else in the practice season, like we have every 4 weeks we have a weekend where we meet together, and then that is just like the same thing that Kyle described when those people came back from Italy, but we have it every 4 weeks, and those people bring the experience back to their local team, and in their local team they can actually then teach their local players way better. And yeah, so that's what the national team is for us. And then we also have the Quidditch Academy, that's what we call it, and that's a summer event for a weekend where people who don't make it into national team can have a workshop thingy weekend, kind of like the Quidditch convention here.
Awesome. So we have another question that I actually really want to know the answer to. So is there a competitive versus whimsy sort of debate or discussion in other countries? So maybe, yeah, Jandals, you have your hand up right away on that. So I feel like you have a great
I have a lot of opinions on this subject.
Yeah.
First of all, I disapprove of the word whimsy, but I'll take it. I think I prefer competitive versus inclusive. You know, you've got to, as we've already said about Hong Kong and Brazil, sort of the benefits of World Cup and what a World Cup actually means. I think a lot of people go to many developed countries will go to the World Cup because that means status, that means glory, that means, you know, winning and getting into those top 10. For most countries, and it's important to remember that there were 28 countries, I think, at the last World Cup in 2018, probably 10 of those were probably going there to win. The other 18 teams were definitely going more for representation, more for competing, more for development. I think potentially splitting them out into a competitive versus inclusive brackets, it can be done. There is ways in certain sporting, I believe you can do, it's called, you basically you do a ranking, and then you pull out sort of, if you were in the top 10 in the last World Cup, that puts you in a higher pool than other teams. They kind of did that in the last structure as well. And I can understand with certain knockouts, it can get a bit difficult. So, but at the moment, I think I'm firmly on the side of inclusive. And it's not just about, I think as well, keeping it locally based. I think that it's important to keep things locally based, but a lot of Quidditch teams often start off with people from different countries bringing the sport back. New Zealand, for example, didn't have a single local New Zealand player until I think about 2017. It was the Quidditch Association of New Zealand actually started from about 5 people overseas who all met each other at international tournaments, not because they were playing, but because they just met. Then they started Quidditch New Zealand and managed to have a big enough international community of New Zealanders to play our first World Cup. And since then, that has grown. So when you think about development and trying to get a team started, World Cup is often the first place that is, or the easiest place to get that ball rolling. But I'll stop and let Stefan talk.
We do have to almost start wrapping up. So Stefan, you have your hand up. I'll let you kind of touch on this, and then we can kind of get into our closing remarks.
All right. I just wanted to say that we have those two EQC divisions now, and the number one, like EQC Division 1 is maybe the competitive side, and EQC Division 2 is maybe the more inclusive tournament, and in terms of your words, Jandals. But I would actually kind of disagree that whimsy is the same as inclusiveness. But maybe that's time for some other day.
It's a hot debate in North America, and I believe it's going to be a hot debate all over the Quidditch community at large. So I guess as we start to sort of wrap up, we can sort of maybe just share one thing that maybe you learned today about another country that you were like, that's the coolest thing ever. I want to bring it back home. Personally, the one thing I learned was that you have your own essentially QuidCon in Germany that you host to sort of share that knowledge. And I think that's been a fault of North America, where the knowledge sharing hasn't been given to other teams to sort of give the next generation all the tools to succeed as much. So I think that's really awesome. Emma, do you have something?
Yeah, I don't know. I would echo that thought. I think, I don't know, when I was at the 2018 World Cup, I really felt like Germany was probably one of the happiest teams, if not the happiest team at that tournament. So they're doing something right. Yeah, it was really cool also to hear about Brazil's growth in these last few years. So I'm looking forward to seeing them become more and more of a Quidditch power. And also, of course, South America, because I know Peru also has a community going as well.
Kyle, would you like to give your last thoughts?
It's very nice for us to be able to be here to talk about Quidditch in Brazil and in South America, because I believe that's what gets the word going, you know, and that's what we most need now in Brazil and in this part of the planet, because being able to play Quidditch in any level here is amazing, because it's a sport that is very inclusive. It's very it brings people closer, and Brazil is very well known to be upcoming for people, you know, to embrace people from all over. And I believe that's what Quidditch does, because we have in this sport so many different people, so many different people, as in gender, in race, and everything else. And I believe that's what makes this sport so great, so worth of spreading. So thanks for this opportunity.
Yeah, and Jandals, do you want to? We only got a few seconds, so
I need to go to Copa del Sur. Tell me when you're next running it. I will be there.
Oh, please!
Amazing. That's me.
And Stefan, your closing remarks.
I like the remark from Jandals about the fast UK players and the physical New Zealand players, and I would actually like to see that sometime myself.
So that is pretty much all we have for today. I'm sure that all the panelists would love to get questions about their country. So anyone watching, if you didn't get something you want to talk about today, feel free to reach out to any of us. We'd love to share. The next sessions going on are how to building a better snitch, so steps to step it up, and knowledge is power, Quidditch research and surveys. So if you're interested in one of those, feel free to join the next sessions. And thank you so much for joining. It was really awesome. And thank you to our panelists for sharing today, because I know you're all over the world with different time zones, and we really appreciate hearing about your countries. So
thanks for having us.
Thanks
for having us,
everyone.
and thanks to all the attendees.
Yes.